Hello, hello. This is Two Monkeys on a Microphone. I'm Jacques. I'm joined here with my co-host Ethan and a special guest today, Raid, someone I met from my French program. Unfortunately, the French program has just ended, and I'm here back at my parents' house, wondering about the meaning of life as I feel this big void in my chest from just not being able to see all my friends and kind of do the things I was doing in Quebec. But luckily, I have this podcast, so I thought, hey, why not bring Raid, one of my closest friends from the program, on and we can talk together and kind of maybe reminisce about like the program, and also you can kind of learn a bit about him. So that's what we decided to do. So I believe this is episode 15, and Ethan has just told me that we're planning on doing 100 of these episodes.
Yeah.
My God. I wonder how long that would take. Maybe 2 years, 3 years? At our pace, I think we could get it done in 3 years, Ethan. Anyway, I'm done rambling on about, 100 episode podcast. I probably should hand the mic over to Raid so he can kind of introduce himself.
Yes, hello.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
So
My name is Raid from Yemen. I came to Canada after I left Saudi Arabia, where I grew up, and I started my life here in Canada since 2018, like learning French, learning English, starting university, starting some part-time jobs, and I did a lot of things what I couldn't do in Saudi Arabia, and I started my life here 5 years ago in Canada. And I met a lot of people. One of them, Jacques, in French program. And
So, of course, I know the answer to this, but how about if you just give us the reason why you decided to study French?
So first, this is not like specific reason, but to grow my CV. When I say like I speak 3 languages, English, Arabic, and also French, that makes like my opportunities bigger than the others who are bilingual. As we know, like in Canada, like most of them or half of them like bilingual. So when you are trilingual, so you will find more opportunity than others. And even if you go back to Middle East, most people only like speak only Arabic. So when you come with 3 languages, so you have more opportunity than others.
So, is there a difference in learning English in Saudi Arabia than learning it maybe in Canada? And the same thing goes with French. Would it be a different experience?
Of course, yes. Because first in Middle East, when you have a teacher, like barely to find someone from Canada or USA or wherever, like UK, like most of them either like Egyptian, like teachers, Arab teachers. So they don't teach that well, like English or accent or whatever. So when you learn the language in the country, the first spoken language, so you will get the benefits more than the other countries. And also the same in French. Like for example, if I start learning the French in Middle East, I don't think I will reach this level, especially with the accent. So now I live with many Quebecois So I can know the difference between the French accent and the Quebecois accent. But if I learn it in Middle East, I will not practice it at all because nobody speaks French, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, here I live in Quebec, in Montreal. So actually, after the program, I started like just ordering in French. Whenever they say bonjour, I just start speaking in French. I don't wanna like switch to English. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's a great idea. Like as you said, even in Regina, like no one speaks French. So like you just don't get that context. How about you, Ethan? Like you've kind of experienced learning English in Vietnam and then not really learning English in Canada, but like being in an English environment. What would you say that the difference is?
Wow. Okay, we're turning to me. Well, I think that I'm gonna repeat the same answer as Raid. Learning English here is a very, very different experience. People, people don't usually have the accent, and there's a lot of, um, let's say, undesirable traits of people teaching and learning English. So yeah, it's very different. I wouldn't say that it's totally bad, but it's really hard to get anywhere far learning any kind of language here. French, English, Spanish, German. It's very tough, I would say. It's very hard to get good unless you're like really, really special in some way. Um, but yeah. Now the thing that yeah.
But your English is pretty strong, and you never left the country to learn English. So it is possible.
It is possible. It totally is possible, but I don't think a lot of people can do that. It's not to say that I'm super awesome or anything. It's just that I think I'm just lucky in some way. I did some right. I did something right. I'm not sure what I did exactly, but I believe I'm one of the exception.
Okay.
Yeah, but like the thing I'm interesting about.
Clap, clap.
Don't need to. Anyway, back to Raid. Thank you so much for spending the time being on our podcast. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is that how did you decide to come to Canada? Like, what was the sort of difficulty that you met during your first years? I know that you lived in Canada for quite some time, right? Was it 5 years?
yes, it is 5 years.
Mm.
So so when I decided to come to Canada, first of all, my dad was like refusing. Like, where are you going to?
Oh.
Like 10,000 kilometers away from us, and like it's no, you know, like no one there, no relatives, and like what you're gonna do there. So you're alone. We need to know someone to host you, even like few days. Like I said, like as the others live, so I can live there. So so I decided to go to have a degree. So my English was so bad. I like barely speak to someone to know the directions. So I just decided. I got the papers from the university and the like the visa and everything, and they flew to Canada. And yeah, like few days I started meeting other people from Yemen, and I met like many people who are so kind, who helped me uh, find ways, find everything, because I didn't want to spend a lot of time in Saudi Arabia just like making a plan. Who should I meet? Should I like? Where should I go? That will take a long time, and whenever I like start overthinking, I think I will
Yeah.
I will like lose a lot of time. I waste a lot of time, so I don't want to. So yeah, I just came to Canada. I started learning English in McGill University,
Oh,
and yeah, and yeah, I found actually before coming, I didn't know Quebec is like only a francophone province. I just decided because like it's multicultural and yeah. So when I found it like a francophone province, I said, okay, why not? I'll go and learn the French language. So it's a good opportunity. So yeah.
yeah. It sounds like you went through a lot. Um, but it's really nice to hear that you got all the help that you need, and you somehow managed to push through everything. That's really great. You said that you went to McGill.
Yes.
That's so cool because like, Jock, you remember Anna from our program?
Yeah.
She goes to McGill as well. So yeah, small world, I guess.
Well, McGill is kind of like the big university in Canada.
Still,
So,
I know.
like, yeah.
But anyway, so anyway, let's.
Okay, before we get off the topic of McGill, what do you think of McGill? Right.
Actually, McGill, as you said, actually is the second biggest university in Canada after Toronto.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah, so wide university. They have like, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 campuses around Montreal, and they're like quite far from each. So yeah, and if you go there, like the university, the class is so big, and the quality of the education is so good, so good. So
Yeah, like I can imagine. They have to keep up their reputation, so they probably pour a lot of money into their facilities and just their staff and things like that.
yeah, that's
You,
right. In McGill, yeah, yeah, and also the environment, and also the teachers. Like I loved my experience in McGill.
so you'd recommend it for someone else who wants to learn English?
Yes, their program, like strong, and the special thing is in McGill, the course in McGill, there's the same one in Concordia, but they have like uh, for permanent resident or Canadian citizen, they have like less fees than the others. Like for example, in Concordia, if you want to go to learn the language, they will cost you around 2,000, but in McGill 800. So look at the
Wow,
difference.
that's
Yeah.
cheap. $800.
Yes.
And so would it be like a full semester for $800?
Yeah, but if you want to get it like part time, it's 800, but full time like 1,400, stuff like that. But in Concordia, I'm talking about the part time. It is 2,000. So full time
Yeah.
would be 4,000. Yeah.
I was talking from someone from America, and they were telling me that even just like moving to McGill and doing their, I think they were going into medicine, doing their studies there, it would still be cheaper than going to their home university in America. And even with like, having to pay the foreigner kind of fees.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
That's
Like quite
crazy.
a lot cheaper.
Wow.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, because the private universities in the US is like more than the other universities. So you need to pay whenever if you want to go to the public university, there's no space for you. So you need to go to the private, and the private costs you a lot. So that's why.
Yeah. And like, if you think of it, it's like the second, as you said, the second best reputation in Canada. And, you know, they're not like overcharging you to like $800 is a lot of money, but compared to, you know, what you could be paying, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. That's also like why did I choose McGill? Like everyone knows McGill, and after that, after finishing the certificate, they also do a ceremony and for the all those who get the diploma or certificate from McGill. So it was like kind of fun.
Yeah. Ethan, as someone who, you know, is thinking about potentially moving to Canada, I don't know, you know, your entire intentions, but from what I gather, it seems like you're at least interested in the idea of maybe moving to Canada. Is there anything else that you might want to know from Raed that could be handy?
Right now, I am most interested in how you transition from being a foreigner. You study in Canada with a study permit. Now, how do you transition from that to a work permit? And that's something I've been thinking about quite a lot, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about it, Raed.
Yeah, sure. It was like after graduating from the what is it called the certificate of proficiency in English in McGill. So after graduating, I went to another status, which is a refugee claimed. So yeah, after claiming a refugee, and I continued my adventure to the French, and until I got the acceptance letter from the court, I started university. So it's not that hard to like to transfer or invert the from study permit to another status. What I did, yeah.
Yeah. So it how long would you say it took?
Do you mean when I claimed until get the acceptance?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it took only 6 months.
6 months isn't too short, but it's not terrible either. Yeah.
No, just 6 months, and because like in Yemen is terrible there, so it's easy to get the acceptance. So there's no way to go back to Yemen. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're originally from Yemen, then you moved to Saudi Arabia, and now you've moved to Canada.
No, actually, my parents from Yemen. My parents from Yemen, but I was born in Saudi Arabia, grew up in Saudi Arabia. But the system there, they don't give you the like citizenship unless your parents or one of your parents from Saudi Arabia. Actually, only your father, if he's from Saudi Arabia, they give you. Yeah, if your mother Saudi, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. So yeah, your father has to be Saudi, and you have to be like born in Saudi Arabia. So I was born in Saudi Arabia, but my parents from Yemen. So yeah, my passport. Only what I know about Yemen is the passport, how it looks like.
Oh. Okay, so you've never actually been to Yemen?
No, never.
Do you think you'd want to go one day?
Yeah, of course. I want to go. Like, I want to see it. but not now. After like few years until like gaming get better. Yeah.
You know, when I first met you, I was very interested in Saudi Arabia because I don't know much about Saudi Arabia. Well, I didn't know much before then, and I probably still don't know too much. But from talking to you, I learned quite a bit, and I even did a bit of research by myself to kind of learn about the history and things like that. And it is very fascinating, just the culture that has been built there. Of course, a lot of people, when they think of Saudi Arabia, they think of oil. But if you just even think about the desert and the monarchy and the politics and things like that, it's quite fascinating. If you were like, Ethan and I did this a few podcasts back, but like we thought kind of a hypothetical, like if we were a tour, kind of a tour guide or someone like that, and we had to like try and get people to come visit our country, what would be things that we'd say? What would be something that you could say that might promote someone to go to Saudi Arabia and maybe check it out?
Actually, for now, Saudi Arabia has been changed a lot. So it's not only a desert. Also, there are a lot of attraction things. Like if you go to my city, Jeddah, you will. If you just walk around the Red Sea, and especially in winter, not in summer. In summer, it's too humidity, so you'll not like it. I was there in May and I hate it actually. So yeah,
It's
so
like me in
if
Japan.
you in Japan, but Japan is quite cold, isn't it?
Well, no, during summer it's really hot.
Okay, so I think the
Especially
same.
because it's by the sea too, the ocean. I think it's the same thing with kind of near the Saudi Arabia too. Like because there's so much water, it gets very humid, and the heat is not just like dry heat; it's humid heat, which I find is worse.
Oh yeah, probably yes, because the humidity there is over 80% or 75%. Yeah, 80% is the yeah. If you go in winter, like in January or February, actually would like if you actually we always sit on like on like a corniche, you call it corniche, on the sea, and many of kids like go around and play. Yeah, if you want to walk, there are like pedestrian path and yeah, bike paths, and it's quite like not as when I was living there. It's been changed, and also if you want to go to the capital, there is what is called the boulevard something where to walk, and the same as Times Square. When you go to Times Square, you see the screens and stuff like that. So many people go there to take photos because they didn't used to that. Like they used to nothing in the capital, the Riyadh. There was nothing. So now it's been changed. So yeah, and actually I loved Saudi Arabia when I went back. Yeah.
It's probably becoming more modern because, as you said, since there's nothing beforehand, they can just build. Now, of course, there probably was some things like you were telling me about how they kind of had to destroy some old buildings and things like that. But even so, I'm guessing it's very modern.
Yeah, and they're like even though they didn't reach their 23 vision, like the vision of 2030, they didn't reach it. So I'm assuming they will like this is just the beginning. So they will uh, they will build a lot of things, and uh, yeah, and trying to make it attractive cities and attractive country to all around the country, and also the visas. Now there is a visas like electronic visas, so you can get it from the airport. As not as before. Before, like you need to go to the MPC to get the visa, and now they're making it easier.
That's good. I'm a bit curious, Ethan, in Vietnam, do you talk a lot about Saudi Arabia?
Um, Not really. The Middle East is it's one of the places that we don't really talk about. So I don't really have anything to add on. I do know a person. He's my best friend. He used to live in Saudi Arabia for the first 18 years of his life. And that's basically all I ever hear about Saudi Arabia. I don't think a lot of people um, care outside of, Europe, America, and then you have China, People don't really talk about foreign countries here. Um, it's a culture thing. It's not like Saudi Arabia doesn't have anything that we can talk about. It's just that I don't think a lot of people actually care about it. Now I did,
think-
yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's kind of similar to here. Like, I think more and more people are talking about Saudi Arabia, but when I was growing up, we virtually heard nothing.
Yeah, well, it's actually I think that the talk about the Middle East as a whole and also countries like Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or other places is because their economy is booming right now, and they're becoming more and more significant in the grand scheme of things, right? It's not just about the Soviet and the US no more. Now you have different factions, different continents, and different countries. They're rising above. And I think Saudi Arabia is becoming more and more like important. Um, like the thing that I know about a country is that the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the US and how they are somewhat of an ally, but not really. But then, you have China and then you have Russia. So yeah, that's all I know about Saudi Arabia. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is becoming more and more common to hear that the name of the country elsewhere. Yeah.
What do you think, right?
Yeah, I think look when he said like nobody's talk about it. So I think this is the reason why Saudi Arabia started like paying money to the best players around like Europe or around the world to come to Saudi Arabia. So now if you like one time my friend had like one of the Saudi team's jersey on and walk around in the downtown of Montreal. Like everyone was looking at him and like naming the players like Benzema, Cristiano Ronaldo. So now everyone knows Saudi Arabia in the soccer. So if you don't watch soccer, so I think your knowledge about Saudi Arabia like less, and I think this is the reason also to like to make Saudi Arabia going through all the other things like the economy, the sports, the like to be attractive to everyone to travel to Saudi Arabia. So yeah, whatever you're interested in, I think Saudi Arabia will come to your interest soon. So yeah, it
That
depends what you're interested in.
that's very good because we were talking about this before, and you said that oil isn't, it isn't a secure future because countries are committing to going green, and there's going to be less and less need for oil in the world. So Saudi Arabia has to kind of find a new identity, and I think kind of move away from oil. And they've started with getting soccer teams and other kind of sports teams to be more, to have better players and to be more recognized. And I think eventually they'll be kind of also working on architecture and things like that in order to kind of bring people in and see it as more of a touristy place.
Yeah, that's right. And also these things, like we were talking about it 10 years ago. Like, for example, my father was all the time telling me, like, if Saudi Arabia keeps getting money from the oil and keep the oil like the main revenue to Saudi Arabia, it will end it up one day. So yeah, but like the kings there or the princes, they couldn't do the big like change in the system or in Saudi Arabia until this is the Prince Mohammed bin Salman who came to do this big change. So yeah, the previous princes or kings, they couldn't do that. So he made a big change.
Oh yeah, you need a lot of money to make that change too. Like, I don't know your opinion, Ethan, but I'd imagine that you wouldn't be able to necessarily do that in Vietnam. I'm guessing they don't have the money to just become, buy all the best players in the world and kind of become a touristy country.
Yeah, no, like we we pretty much don't have that sort of options. Now, I just want to add a little thing to my point that I was making earlier. When I said that people don't talk about Saudi Arabia, it's not because the country is not popular. It's more because we're pretty ignorant of both things. Like, and I think that the same case can be applied to my countries. Like, I don't think that a lot of people know a whole lot about Vietnam. But with Saudi Arabia, now you guys are different because, like Jacques said, it's the new era is coming, right? And Saudi Arabia is trying to look for a new identity. They are stepping away from the oil, and they want to be known and remembered by something else. And I think that's one of the things that's bringing a lot of attention to the country at the moment. Now with Vietnam, we like you said, we don't have the sort of resource to do that sort of thing. So yeah, and I don't think it's like it's comparing orange to apple because I don't think that's one of the things that people really care about here. All they care about is like having jobs and 4% GDP per year or something like that.
Let's get back to that. But you mentioned something very interesting, Ethan.
Yeah.
Right. How much do you know about Vietnam?
Like not that much.
So I guess you're right, Ethan. I guess you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
I always see it as kind of like a classroom, and America is like, the kind of maybe a bit the jester in the classroom, but also like maybe the wealthy kid's jester. So like he takes like, all the attention from the class, and then all the other countries are like also kids in the classroom. And there's some who are like at the back of the room who people don't notice, but like have a special talent like drawing or painting. They're very good at sports. And there's like, like every country is like a kid in that classroom. And there's some that take a lot of attention, and there's others who are a bit more in the shadows.
See, now this is where I feel like like I don't know, it's like a self-hatred thing, but like if my country were a kid in that class, I honestly don't know what makes that kid special. Like I really, really don't know. It's like okay, so like we have a lot of our culture, like thousands of years, right? But China did the same thing. They did it better and they did it for much longer. Sure, we have our own things too, and we're very proud of it, and we take pride in that. But compared to other countries, other kids in the classroom, I'm not really sure how we're gonna stack up, you know? With Saudi Arabia, now that country has something, you know? But like when you talk about Vietnam, it's always the same stuff. Like, oh, the people are so nice, they work hard, the food is so nice, and I'm like, yeah, no shit. I mean,
I think everyone's hard on their country. Like you're especially hard on Vietnam, even. But
am
I
I?
think even like Canadians are like, well, we're always in like the shadow of the USA. Like we're the younger brother. Now I don't think there's as much like, hey, we're identityless,
Mm.
but our identity basically boils down to, hey, we're very polite. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan? Do you think how do you perceive your country? Well, of course, you come from Yemen, but I just mean like, Saudi Arabia because you spent most of your time there.
Yeah. So uh, actually, Saudi Arabia is like if you, to be honest, if you have a good job and you are educated and you're like have your degree and all the like you done all the successful things, I think you are able to live there. Otherwise, I Saudi Arabia is not as before. Like I used to live there with no like I was unemployed and I was able to live there because like friends have jobs. My father, my mother, my brother. So we could live there. But like now, if you have no job, you you cannot survive. It's really hard because Saudi Arabia has been changed. Everything you have to pay. Like now, Saudi Arabia, I could say like the same as Canada. If you have no job, it's like unable
It's hard to live.
yeah,
Uh,
you cannot survive.
yeah. And this kind of brings me to what Ethan was saying earlier, and that is like benefits. So Saudi Arabia, you were telling me, you used to not be taxed. And from the videos I've watched, it seemed like even the healthcare system was very like, if did you have to pay for healthcare or was it free healthcare?
No, it's free, but like if we go back to 2017, they had no taxes, and if you go like 2015 or 2016, even there is no health insurance you have to pay for. So just go
Yeah.
to the nearest clinic and tell them what you have, and they will help you. So yeah, now and you need to pay for the insurance, and when you go to the clinic, you need just to pay the fee, like the percentage of something like $5, which is real, and yeah. But before like 2015 or 2016, totally
You
for free.
used to be a really good life. How about in Vietnam? Ethan, what's the
What?
healthcare system and just the
Healthcare.
benefits?
Are we talking about healthcare now? Now, um, as much as I want to talk about it, I have one very interesting question that's been burning inside me.
Sure.
about Saudi Arabia. So, Raid, so we were talking about like how the country is trying to shake up this sort of new identity. And I was kind of wondering like how did that change the life in your country? Did you feel any sort of difference? Is there any kind of struggle for this new identity? Do people have to like, do people like how do people perceive about it, in your opinion?
Look, now I've been like 5 years away from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Yes. So, so like, from my knowledge about that, I would say like people love, like, for example, my brother told me like a month or 3 months ago, he for first time he met a Portuguese in Saudi Arabia. So he was like so happy. Oh, we see like European people in Saudi Arabia. So so Saudi Arabia, when they did the big change in the country, they know the people there, they don't used to see like foreign or non-Arab people in Saudi Arabia, but they have to do all of that because they want in 10 years or in 15 years Saudi Arabia popular, everyone like the people there be like with European, like deal with others. There's no obstacles and everything. So first 5 years, I would say, it was so hard for Saudi people with this change. But now after now it's been I think 7 or 8 years. I think people there like get used to it. Like that's fine. We're able to deal with these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what my opinion. Like from 5 years away from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's um, that's really interesting to know because the reason why I asked that question is because about 30 years ago, was it 30? No, about like 40, 50 years ago, our country basically went through the same sort of transition, right? We went from this whole closed economy where the government is like basically holds every power, the economy, the military, all business, all sort of thing, all aspects of life are governed by the state. So we changed that. We opened up the economy. We started to trade with the U.S., with China, and we opened up our borders. And a lot of things changed, right? Like people getting more job, life was starting to be better for a lot of people. But then something happened, right? We life got better, but we sort of like struggle in a different way, in a new era where we have more things, but we don't have anything to remind ourselves who we are actually. So we kind of like dive into sort of identity crisis where the youth, the younger generation, they're born in a sort of transition and they don't really know what's the point of all of this, right? Sure, life is better, you have nice car, you have nice car, nice phone, life is better, you get higher education. But I feel like for a lot of people, myself included, you're kind of often wondering like, what are we actually doing here? Are we doing are we doing things for the better of our life, or are we trying to fill in the sort of gap that we left behind when we open our economy? And I don't know.
Do you feel, Ethan, that like you're kind of living in the shadow of others? Like in some ways, Vietnam is trying to replicate other countries, mainly maybe the US or other Western or European countries. And because of that, it's become a bit identity. It doesn't have its own identity.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that Vietnam is like trying to do the exact thing that the US is doing. We're certainly doing things our own way. It's just that it just leaves you so much to think about when the things that you're told by a lot of people when you grow up is not there anymore. The whole basic values of who you are as a Vietnamese, like it's just gone. Now people only care about like, oh, I want a nice car, I want a nice house, I want to get a job, I want the economy to keep growing. So yeah, and this sort of leaves a very big gap between like the younger generation and the older generation, where it's just like basically in the US and in Canada, you have the boomer and the millennials, and now you have the Gen Z. Basically here it's the same, but it's like it's much more noticeable, I would say.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a very interesting time period in my country, and I was kind of wondering if Saudi Arabia or the people that lived there ever went through the same thing.
Actually, have no idea about this thing.
Oh no, it's okay. It's just
yeah.
just a random thought in my head.
It is
Yeah.
interesting because, like, when I went to Japan, I felt like it was gradually becoming more and more Western and more touristy. So it was focusing more on kind of trying to please tourists rather than necessarily caring about itself. And that's a very general statement. But I definitely felt like it was different and different in a way that was more Western. However, I'm sure every country is kind of like that in some extent, where their identity is changing, and it might not be based on Western countries, but just on its global identity in general. And it's a little sad to see because you always like to think about the past and kind of reminisce about how things used to be. But also you have to understand that in order for the country to prosper and to do well, it needs to change.
Actually, my thoughts say like whenever you're aiming the tourists, I think the people or the citizens, they will struggle a bit because when you're aiming on tourists, like how to bring them to the country, the like people who live there, they need like they will need sort of things like jobs, high quality of education, because you're aiming to bring people. So you're not give the people or the citizen any attention. So that was kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? You focus on someone else, you're not focusing on the people who make up your country. I think it will help, right? Making your country more touristy will help the economy, which will help the people, but in the current state, doesn't really help. Especially when they're tearing down old buildings that, have apartments and things like that, and forcing people to leave and move elsewhere. It's not the best for the people.
What about in Canada? Because like there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of conversation about how Canada should be, where you have your birth rates being very low, Meanwhile, you have like 2 or 3 million people migrate to Canada every year. So there's a lot of arguments about how Canada should react to that. Like, should we please the international, the foreigners that have moved to Canada, or should we focus on, making lives for the native Canadians?
I I think Canada is different because US is so powerful.
Mhm.
We get a lot of benefits from being so close to the United States.
Mhm.
So lots of foreign, if you want to study in a Western country and you don't want to pay like too ridiculous fees, you can come to Canada, right? So we get a lot of foreign students. Also, we have a lot of space. So it's not like we're running out of room. Now, the big cities are very crowded. I'm sure Raid can testify for Montreal. 4 million people, I think. Like, it's quite crazy. But generally speaking, we have quite a lot of space. And yeah, we kind of, because of our relationship with the United States, we're able to get a lot of benefits without necessarily having to stand out and make a strong identity for ourselves. Like, when you try and make up the Canadian identity, well, try and describe the Canadian identity, it's pretty hard because, like, you could say we're multicultural, and that we're very polite, and that and that we like hockey, maple syrup, and those kind of things. But those are very broad topics, and maple syrup and things that's kind of vague, and it's hard to make up the Canadian identity. Yet we kind of thrive because of that vagueness, because it's so open. It's so there's so much land. There's so much unknown. It's very easy to come over here and be like, hey, I can start a life for myself here and just kind of make it through. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not regulated. It's not like fiercely regulated. It's not like there's no dictator. There's no like the government doesn't own everything. It's very free in some ways.
Do you think it should be that way?
I think just based off of the population size, we can't be like a major country that is out there in the spotlight. I think it's impossible. So yeah, I think it is good that we have this kind of free and open identity.
Yeah.
It means a lot of things are wishy-washy, but at the same time, it seems like people are happy.
Yeah, see, this is the thing about Canada. That's sort of it makes it very attractive to people like me, because like, Chuck, like you know me for a year. Yeah, you can tell that I do have an identity crisis from time to time. And whenever I'm in Canada, I get the sense of freedom, in the sense that you don't know who you are, but you can be whatever you are. It's okay, and it is very likely that you will do well looking that piece of identity for yourself and maybe build from that. Now I can't say the same thing about Vietnam. I'm not sure how things are going in Saudi Arabia, but I can say for sure that my search for identity here is not very well. I gotta say, yeah.
How about you, Raid? From your 5 years in Canada, what would you kind of describe Canada as?
Actually, like, if I talk about my adventure, like 5 years, 2018 until 2023, what I went through, like Canada is a good place for people who wants to have education. Yeah, since I came to Canada, I was looking for that thing, and in 1 year, like in 2024, I will be like having a bachelor degree in computer science. So I have never imagined that. So yeah, for education is a good country to educate. Like I always tell my friends, if you are like planning to go back or to leave Canada one day, do not lose this opportunity, the education. You have so cheap like fees or price of education with high quality. And if you leave the country without like a certificate, even a certificate, I think you will struggle in 10 or 20 years in your life. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You were mentioning that, like, even just, having a certificate from Canada and you go to Saudi Arabia and, you're looking for a job, they'll favor someone with a certificate from Canada over someone who got their certificate in Saudi Arabia.
yeah, yes, of course. Like I got a certificate from Miguel in English language. I believe if I go only with this certificate, I will find a job.
Mm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
In Vietnam, is it also the case? Like, if you have a university certificate from a different country, like let's say the United States, do you think you do better than someone with a certificate from Vietnam? Vietnamese university?
That's kind of it depends. It really depends, because like the tricky part here is that when it comes to language proficiency certificate, there are only certain kinds that are accepted at university or workplaces. Sure, if you have a certificate from a university from the States, it will help with your CV, but I don't think you will be preferred if compared to someone who have something like a major language proficiency certificate. So yeah, it really depends. It is helpful, but I don't think it's that helpful. You know what I mean?
It's not like a make or break.
Yeah. It's not like a yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of Canada as kind of a place of education, but
What?
you're right. Like,
What? Yeah. Really? Because like you don't know. Really? Wow. I mean,
no, I like, for us, we think that university is cheap, quite expensive.
uh-huh.
Like,
See, because like I'm so surprised because like it's like the Vietnamese being good at war, right? The Vietnam is good at war. Canada has good education, and the U.S. has a lot of guns. So this is like basically like the thing that like the thing that people think about when they say about Canada. I'm so surprised that you don't know that, John. I mean, you didn't know that.
well, like I kind of got like some ideas of it, but like again, for us, we consider university quite expensive. Like, for example, when I was doing my internship, and I asked the students, how many of you are going to university? No one raised their hand, if I remember correctly. Only a few people raised their hand for going to like SciAst. But yeah, like there's quite a lot of kids here who don't go to university just because they find it too expensive and maybe also a waste of their time.
That's so interesting because, well, on one hand, yes, it is expensive, but I think that I can speak for a lot of people like me who come from places like Vietnam or Indonesia, something like that. Canada and the US are like, if you talk about education, like that's the place that you want to go. That's the place that you want to end up with. It is expensive, but it's like,
Not Europe. Like I feel like here, like everyone wants to either go to America or they want to go to Europe for their education.
well, Europe is pretty good too. I wouldn't say that. I'm not saying like people wouldn't choose Europe, but I'm just saying that Canada is like people talk about Canada and the US as like your ticket out of hell, and that ticket being education. I think Raid can back me up on this. Yeah, so I'm so surprised when you don't think like education is like one of the big things about Canada. I think like if you talk about any like if you go to any kind of embassy of Canada in anywhere, I think the big thing that they like to boast about is like your education. Like, oh, look at me, I'm Canada. I have very good education. You should sign up. You know, that sort of thing. It's so funny.
I think like a lot of time we just make fun of the fact like that. Like not make fun of the fact, but there's a lot of jokes going around that like we overcharge our international students. So that's kind of funny.
It is.
No. But Brian, you had a lot of friends from Montreal, right? In Saudi Arabia when you're doing soccer.
Yeah, actually they're Yemenis, but were born in Saudi Arabia, like the same my situation.
Oh, okay. So they just went over to Montreal and then came back?
No, like my friends in Montreal.
Oh, no, like when you're playing soccer in Saudi Arabia,
Oh,
I thought a lot of like the players were from Canada, Montreal region. Or am I just crazy?
in Saudi Arabia or here?
In Saudi Arabia, when you're playing for the soccer team. Or,
No.
or were you playing the soccer team here?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was wondering, like I was looking at that photo, I'm like, wow, it's amazing how many people. Okay, I was like, I was actually really confused when you showed me that photo. And like, yeah, this was my team. And I was like, oh, that's his team from Saudi Arabia. It's kind of funny that he looks like the only person from like.
No, I told you that in the university in Sherbrooke.
Okay,
Yeah.
Makes sense now. Makes sense. I was just like, because you're talking about how you came over here with like no connections and things like that. I'm like, did he just say like half of his soccer team was like from Montreal? No one was willing to help him out. Wow, like that would have been pretty funny.
That team in Sherbrooke City, the my University Bishops. Yeah, and most of them actually from France, like 5 of them. I think,
Okay.
from France. Yeah, so they wanted to study in English school, English university.
You know, Ethan, so you might be able to tell this, but just from what Raid was talking about with the soccer teams, but Raid is a very, very big soccer fan.
No,
And-
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and like he was telling me, like we're walking back to the dorms one day, and he was like, "Yeah, like I almost broke." Was it every single finger on your hands you broken, or is it like almost every single one? I don't remember, but he's breaking
almost
almost
like 8.
every single. Like he still enjoys this game. I can't believe it.
But actually, I learned after I've broken my my fingers. I learned how to avoid these things.
But you've broken
Like,
all of them.
Too late. A bit too late. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. John already told me that you were like a big fan of soccer, and picking up from the conversation, I can tell. And I feel like that's that's like the thing for a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, right? Like people love soccer and they play it when they're a kid. And do you guys play competitively?
Sorry?
Do you play like professionally? Like
Yeah. Like, and the soccer is the first, like the first sport
National
in Saudi
sport.
Arabia. Yeah. So even in the professional league, there is like 5 or 6 divisions under that, and also in the like the neighborhoods. Each neighborhood has their own team, and they play under something in the government. So the government manage all of these things. So yeah, and people like make money of playing, even like we call it non-professional, but is like to other comparing to other countries, yes, it's professional because you're making money in playing soccer in this way, and the government like controlling these leagues in the neighborhoods. So yeah, it's kind of.
I can know it's like a big thing over there. Do you guys like have this sort of big celebration wherever like a team wins or something?
Yeah, of course. Like, like yeah, I don't know if you remember, like Saudi Arabia beat Argentina in the World Cup.
Oh
Only,
yeah, yeah. I definitely remember that. I think it's
yeah, and the country went crazy after that. They only one game.
I think I remember. I think the king ordered like the next day, like business stop, so like people can just like cheer and have fun
Yeah, day
and
off.
celebrate. That's so cool.
Yeah, day off after winning against Argentina.
That's so.
That is so cool. Like that's actually like, yeah, like we have the queen, right? Oh no, no longer the queen. We have a king too. What am I thinking? Anyway, that would be so cool. Like even though we don't recognize the monarch, it would be so cool if the monarch was like, "Yep,
Yep. Yeah, like you guys
because-
have a weekend off or something.
you know, we didn't get a holiday when the queen died. Like everyone else got a holiday, but we didn't. I couldn't believe it.
Actually, in Quebec, even they didn't get a day off after Queen died.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
don't know about the provinces.
We're just monarchy. Yeah, I don't. What do you guys? I think Ethan knows this, but Fred, do you know what the two national sports of Canada are?
I don't think I know that.
The first one is the hockey, absolutely. The second, I would say I don't know, either the no, not I would say baseball. I don't know.
Can I
It's
guess?
funny
Can I
because
guess? Oh.
Yeah,
Basketball
I
or-
told you, Ethan. Remember when you came for the program? I told you guys.
Did
anyway,
you?
what's your
Okay.
guess, Ethan?
No, you can go ahead, you know.
Go ahead, like embarrass yourself. Show that you've forgotten what I told you.
It's definitely not football. Football is not that big in Canada, I think. So hockey, that's for sure. Is it curling?
It's not curling.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
It's a good guess though, and I believe basketball was actually created in Canada.
Really?
Yes,
Yes.
basketball. I heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did basketball
Yeah,
created?
James Naismith. I believe he's a Canadian. Oh no, born in Mississippi. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he lived in Canada or something. It has some origin. Anyway, it's not basketball. It's lacrosse. Lacrosse is the second national sport of Canada, and not many people know that. Do you even know what lacrosse is?
Who, me or Raid?
Either of you.
I'm just gonna shut up. Like,
Yeah, actually, I know it. It's the First Nation game. That what I know about it, and like
there are two goals and they play with the like something on like I don't know, like net. They handle the balls on the net and they throw. I don't know, something like that. Even the keeper with his own net.
It's very similar to hockey, but it's like you instead you have nets on your sticks and you pass the balls with that.
Oh my god, no wonder.
Yeah,
I was gonna make
actually, but
sorry,
because
keep
my,
going.
my my university has a lacrosse team, so sometimes I see them like walking around with their sticks and small nets and.
It's just so funny to me that out of like all the sports, right? So Canada has two national sports. One of them is hockey, and the other one is hockey but without ice. And for some reason, I find it so funny.
What's the national sport of Vietnam?
I What's the national
He's quickly
sport?
searching it up.
What? Really? Huh. Wow, I did not know that. Wow. Badminton. So badminton, but
Badminton.
yeah, but with your foot.
What badminton?
Foot badminton. So like you kick it with your feet. It has a very special name. Not gonna say it, but
Okay,
yeah. Apparently,
foot badminton, eh?
yeah. Apparently, that's the national sport. I have no idea. I don't think anybody would consider that a sport. Like, there's no rule. You just kind of kick the thing around, and yeah.
Do you know about this beforehand? Like this foot badminton? I'm just searching it up now. Foot bad.
Yeah, foot badminton. Just look it up.
I know what
Okay.
is badminton, but foot badminton is something new for me.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
I don't think it's very common. See, 'cause the reason why I'm surprised is that it's more like a thing that people, like kids or sometimes adults people do. I don't think like there's any kind of sport event that is designated for foot badminton. So saying that it's the national sport is kind of a reach, I feel like. I would say soccer. Like soccer is very popular.
Okay.
I grew up playing soccer a whole bunch. In before I learned about basketball. Yeah.
Soccer is like I think soccer is one of the most popular sports, like for countries.
Yeah. It's
Like it's because it's so simple, right? You just need a ball and a net, and you're good. You can play soccer. Whereas like playing hockey, you need like $100 worth of equipment, maybe more, and then you can play hockey.
well, I mean, you need shoes to play soccer. I don't think.
Yeah, but everyone has shoes,
Well, not
and
every.
I think you could probably play soccer with sandals too. You wouldn't be very good, but you could play.
Actually, in soccer, you only need a ball. That's it. Because
Really?
Yeah.
even nets is not needed, and the like no need to wear shoes. Because actually, we use the shoes to make the goal, to make the
Oh right,
Yes.
yeah. I do remember that.
yeah. I can go through these things, so it's a goal.
I love that. It's like probably like my only memory of my childhood friends. It's just like a bunch of kids not wearing t-shirts. We were on our shorts. And like it wasn't really a basketball field, it was just like a grass field. And we had a ball and that was it. Yeah.
Another good thing with soccer is the rules are so simple, right? Just get the ball through the net and you're good, and you can't use your hands. So like you can explain the rules to anyone so quickly. Of course, you can get more complex with the outs and things like that, but the basics, very, very simple. Whereas
Yeah.
basketball,
Very simple. Just don't hit the other player. That's it. If you hit it like a free kick, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that is just so hard to as a soccer player to play basketball here. It's like most people are so used to the simple rules. You either you like the only thing that you need to remember is like you kick with your ball and don't touch your hand. With basketball, it's like it's a totally different story, right? So many rules, so many steps, and but yeah.
How,
I remember
however,
one.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, keep
I
going.
remember one day I played basketball with like a Montrealer friend who used to study learn French with me in Montreal. So one day he invited me to play basketball. I like my knowledge about basketball, like only watching it on TV. I haven't like even played basketball. So he said, "Okay, we'll start just shooting," and yeah. So after 5 minutes, we saw some people playing. He asked them, "Okay, let's play a match." Okay, so my friend and I were in one team, and the others on the other team. So I didn't know like you need to like not to step three steps and just like pass it with I think two hands or one hand. Like I made a lot of like fouls and
Yeah.
yeah, until he said, "Okay, you're good only for shooting, not playing."
No, yeah, like, and you also have to know how to dribble a ball too, like dribble and run.
Yeah.
Like people can dribble a ball, but like running with the ball, bit difficult.
Yeah, like the learning curves were really high for basketball, I feel like. Well, with soccer, you can just like grab a ball and kick your feet, but it takes like weeks to even basically learn how to play basketball, and I think I think that's the reason why it's not really popular here.
However, to be fair, I watched a soccer match with Raid and witnessed his team lose by 2 points. So sad, so sad. And I have to say, if I had the choice between watching a basketball match or a soccer match, I probably would choose a basketball match.
Oh,
Because, like, the point difference was just 2 points. You know, like, it doesn't seem like soccer goes up by very many points.
mhm.
And there's also so many players that it's like, it's too much. And the field's gigantic, the net's gigantic. It's easy to follow, but it's not like the exciting moments are pretty rare. Whereas with basketball, is it only 6 players or 5 players? 5 or 6 players. I'm not the
It's
5.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 players. You know, it's easier to focus on like the key players. The court's smaller, and getting the ball in the net it's a lot more elegant, right? You have to jump, you throw it in. There's like or you could shoot it from like the 3-point line. There's a lot of little like tricky things that you can do to get the ball in the net that soccer has too. But I feel like with basketball, it's a bit more, it's a bit more intense.
See, I do have my points to counter that, but let's hear from a soccer player, Raid. What do you think?
Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead, Jock.
Okay, why would you choose to watch a soccer match over a basketball match, in your personal opinion?
Actually, I grew up in a soccer community, so I didn't know any other sports than soccer. So
Okay, so
after being like 15 or 16, I realized basketball, volleyball, yeah.
mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So what makes watching soccer so enjoyable for you, right?
Yeah, as I said, like I grew up in a soccer community. Like I used to go to the stadium with my friends watching the soccer, and I loved that team. We're in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. So like when you're being like all the time go to that club and use the facilities, watching their training, watching their matches, like
yeah, after that long story, I started watching the Europe soccer, because in Saudi Arabia there's no other sport than soccer, but few people watching basketball. So yeah, if I was born if I were born in let's say the US, of course I would just watch basketball rather than soccer.
I think that's a good answer. How about you, Ethan? Why would you choose a soccer match over a basketball match?
I wouldn't say that I would choose to watch a soccer match over a basketball match, because I play basketball. I love basketball, and I'm probably gonna watch basketball anyway. Not really a big soccer guy, but however, I do understand the appeal of soccer. It's like, sure, the game is a little bit drawn out. It's not like a lot of things happen for a lot of time, but that makes it so special. Like you watch the game, you see how the game going, and then once your team score, it just feels really great. Like really, really great. Whereas in basketball, oh, okay, you got good team composition. The guy just shot and then it got in. Yeah, okay, well, that's 2 points. And the next round, the other team is probably gonna lead up with that too. So it's not like it's a big deal. But in soccer, if you can just raise one goal, right? Now that's huge. The whole match can be determined at that right moment. So I do understand the appeal. However, I still watch basketball. So
I can see that. Like, because there aren't as many goals scored, the goals that are scored are way more important.
Yeah.
Whereas in basketball, because I assume you get more points, it's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but what was the original topic of the podcast again?
I don't know. We just kind of talk about random things, and we got here.
Oh my god!
I think we've been going for almost an hour. I was thinking maybe to wrap it up. I know we said that we weren't going to do those philosophical questions, but let's just end with one juicy philosophical question.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry. Finish your sentence, and I'll.
I was going to say we could end with a juicy philosophical question, and then call it a good podcast, because I think we got quite a lot of material done. We learned a lot about Raid. We learned about Saudi Arabia. We learned a little bit more about Vietnam. I learned that Canada is a great place for education. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's not. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm just saying that it's kind of out of nowhere, because we've been jumping through quite a bunch of topics, and now we're kind of asking this. Okay, let's jump into the questions. What kind of questions do you want to ask? Go ahead.
I was thinking. One that you mentioned that I really liked was, what standards do you judge yourself?
Oh.
I thought that was a good question.
It is really.
I think we all want to be better people, right? I think we're aiming to be smarter or more capable people. And how do we judge that necessarily? Is it based on degrees, of education, of work experience? There's many factors, and I'm just kind of curious what factors you guys judge yourselves off of. So, does anyone want to go first, or shall I go first?
You know what? Let's our guests do it first. So, Raid, what do you think? I know it's kind of, going from soccer to this big question is kind of shocking, but don't worry, go ahead.
I don't know.
I think I need to think about
Okay.
a bit about it.
I'll go first because I brought it up.
Sure. Go ahead, buddy.
I feel so. There's many standards you can, as I said, like your education, your work experience, the amount of money you have, your idols, and things like that. But I think, for me, what I hope to accomplish in my life is to create great pieces of art or great works, right? So that, and under that category, I could define that as, having a kid. I think having a kid is kind of creating something that has value and that has meaning. So I think the standard where I'd feel like I've done a good job and I've created something that is meaningful is when, I guess, when I feel like I've produced enough things in my life that have meaning. I don't know if that you kind of understand what I'm saying.
No, I get it.
So,
get
for
it,
example,
yeah.
like when you write an essay, you've produced something meaningful. I feel like once I've produced a lot, a lot of meaningful things like that, then I'll feel like I've achieved something.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, that's kind of what came to mind right off the bat.
Okay.
But I feel like I could have done a better job explaining it, to be honest. But
no, I feel like it was pretty clear. Now, the only thing that I'm kind of curious, because like you were mentioning to me about how people gonna respect you more if you have more money. Now, do you judge yourself based on the amount of respect that people pay to you?
I think it's not necessarily money that gets you respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think once you've accomplished something, people respect you more. And that could be getting money, that could be finding a job, that could be getting a wife and having kids. Yeah. And that respect means that people treat you differently. People realize that you're independent, that you're capable, and because of that, they give you the respect that you deserve for that kind of thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always chase after money, after a good job, after a wife. But I think you have to do things in your life that cause people to respect you. Because when people respect you, you respect yourself. And the same thing goes when you respect yourself, people respect you. And so for me, building up a repertoire of things that I'm proud of, that I've created, that I'm proud of, means that I feel like I've accomplished something that's worth people's respect, but also my own respect. I think I'd respect myself more, and I think people would also respect me more if I can produce things that are meaningful. And yeah, so I'm a very person who's not necessarily about gaining things, but producing things.
See, the questions that I want to ask is, so do you judge yourself based on how people treat you, or how people do people respect you? Okay, let's say your kids, they did something bad, right? And you're gonna punish them, and you're gonna punish them because you want them to respect you, so they're not gonna do that bad thing anymore. Is that something that you want? Is that
okay? So let's say you're a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think parents and kids it's very much up to the parents and the kids, right?
Okay.
Every kid's different, and it's very hard to know exactly, like, depending on the situation, right? But let's say you're a teacher in the classroom. You have to have you have to build a certain amount of professionalism that causes the kids to respect you. Because if the kids don't respect you, you can't keep order in the classroom. So there has to be some amount of respect given to you in the classroom. And to do that, you have to be stern. If they break the rules, then you can't just keep letting them off the hook. You have to confront them. You have to talk to them, and you have to tell them why they can't keep breaking the rules. So yes, I think in life, and even outside of the classroom, if you're at your workplace, if you're with your friends, if you're with people in general, you have to make sure that there's some kind of respect shown towards you. Because if there isn't, then it's very easy to be taken advantage of or to be walked all over.
See, this is very interesting to me because although I do agree with everything that you said, and I believe that if putting in the same situation, I would do the same thing and probably want the same thing as well. I wouldn't use the word respect. I would okay, I still say the word respect, but like in the sense that there are two senses of respect, right? I think like the one that you're talking about is the one that I would consider is more like it's heading towards boundary. That's the respect that, if you, that's the sense of respect that you're talking about to me. And now the other sense of respect, it's more about, what's the word? Endorsement. Now that is something that I was a little bit confused the other day when you mentioned that, you have to have money so that people can respect you.
No. So what I was talking the other day about is that if you feel like your relationship with someone is off balance, is not necessarily how you want it to be, and you feel a certain, somewhat powerless in that relationship, to at least have some control over that relationship, you have to understand whether the person respects you as a person or not. And to build that respect up, you can do that through money, you can do that through accomplishments, you can do that through education, you can do that through life experience. There's many different facets to doing that. But to say that the relationship is broken and is unfixable and that you'll never have control over it, I think isn't necessarily true. Relationships constantly change. They're they're flexible. And to believe that the relationship will never change, I think isn't entirely fair. It might not, become like it might not ever, become the type of relationship you want it to be, but it can change, and respect is one of the components that can cause change to a relationship. So, yeah, but I think we're kind of moving away from the standards to judge yourself.
Yeah, no.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it was kind of, it was, it's clear now. Don't worry. It was just.
So, what standards do you judge yourself, Ethan?
Now let's give it to Reed. Reed, have you thought of your answer yet?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start talking about like I'm a person that I'm not that person who start making conversation with other people. So I think as Jack mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, like we have never said hi. So yeah, and and like since I was kid, the same personality. Like I don't like start making conversation because I'm afraid of that person like doesn't like to have that conversation or have a relationship with me. So I like stay away from the other person until he start get close to me. Then I don't mind to be a friend and stuff like that. So I think this is like not a good thing to a person who needs to make like relationship with others. So you need to like go ahead and start a conversation, speak, like get close to the other person to make that relationship. And as Jock also mentioned, and the respecting, like with all respect, but I always say that don't give the other person a high expectation, because if you go back to the normal like life, he would feel the difference. So start with a normal thing with him or with her, and afterwards you could keep the relationship. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, because I'm not that good in philosophy.
No, it's okay.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think I understand kind of what you're getting at. So you're saying that because, like, for example, it's very hard when you're starting a relationship with someone, right? Because you don't know what they're expecting necessarily with the relationship. So as you said, like, it can be kind of difficult approaching someone just from the get-go and being like, hey, let's be friends, right? Because you don't necessarily like it could be that they don't even really want to be necessarily close friends with you. Like, sometimes you meet someone and they, they're just happy kind of doing their own thing on the bus. And, it's like, it's very hard to kind of gauge another person just off of the get-go. But you don't want to be fake, right? You don't want to like pretend that you're someone you're not, and like set this false impression, right, of yourself when you make this initial impression with them. So like it's kind of like, how do you approach someone off the get-go in a way that's genuine but also not invasive, like you're not kind of forcing yourself upon them. And I don't think there's necessarily a good answer that kind of says that fixes that answers the question. But I do think that there is, as long as you're friendly and you're good spirited, and again, you don't present yourself falsely, I think that they'll appreciate any kind of interaction, like, just you saying hi and things like that. And I think by just talking with them, you can very, very easily get an impression of who they are and whether they are interested in a friendship with you, or if they're just, interested in a good conversation.
Yeah, and also the like, people, they're not all the time in a good mood. So sometimes like I'm afraid of coming or approaching this person, and he's not in a good mood to speak. So I like stay away. Say probably when he's in good mood, he will say hi, and even if we're talking about the program and the class, I didn't make a lot of friends. So for that reason, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. I always find like if you don't start early, like in the program, it's very hard to start making friends later on because it's almost as if at the start of the program, no one knows each other. So it's very easy to be like, hey, my name's Jacques and like I'm from Regina, and then kind of make that early introduction. But like later on in the program, it's a lot harder because everyone's kind of past the early introductions. So you're kind of late to the late to the party almost.
Yeah, you're right.
But generally, I feel like in some ways, being quiet and not introducing yourself is more harmful than like doing a bad introduction. Because I feel like when people see someone like not talking or just like to themselves, they kind of it's unknown, right? They don't know what the person's necessarily thinking. And because of that unknown nature, they'll begin to even further distance themselves from them. Because like I've had experiences where I believe that like I was like not talking to people, and they kind of got this perception of me as like this person who might be like, snobby or kind of like just, not too good. And then like when I actually go and talk to them, they're like, oh, like he's actually just a regular dude and he's actually not very smart. So I don't know. Like, I definitely know what you mean. How about you, Ethan?
Are we still on about the questions, or are we talking about like meeting new people and?
We're moving in like different directions. You can talk about like meeting new people, or you can talk about like what is it? What was the question again?
The question was
Something.
How do you judge yourself, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either or.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna answer the questions. How do I judge myself? Man, do you want this to be like this doom and gloom sort of questions where like, oh, my cup is half empty? That's
just answer it honestly.
Okay.
I think that's the best way.
Okay, honestly. How do I judge myself? It's kind of hard actually, because I do have a lot of metrics and a lot of ways that I judge myself. I guess the first way that I judge myself is how people see me. Not like it's like when you talk to different people. What am I trying to say? Anyway, no, forget that. Let me start again. Okay, so how do I judge myself? I judge myself based on how I behave and how I treat other people. Am I kind enough? Am I being a good person? Did I say this thing that can be hurtful to somebody? And that's usually how I go around people. I tend to be very careful, and I tend to pay attention closely to how I treat other people. And I think like my biggest fear is that let other people down or say something that I didn't mean to, or like step on someone's toe because something that I said. So yeah, I do judge myself sometimes quite harshly based on how I behave around other people. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that I do judge myself based on the achievement that I did. I don't think that's very healthy, I would say. there's a there are a lot of ways that you can judge yourself, and it doesn't have to be this way. But I think that's the thing about me, is that I see myself as the thing that I can achieve, which is sometimes it feels good, like, hey, wow, I did this thing and this is me. But sometimes it's terrible in the sense that, without all the things that you achieve, you kind of don't know who you are, and you constantly search for new highs, right? Like new things to achieve. And once you accomplish it, good. But now you're kind of stuck with nothing, because that's the big part of who you are, and now it's gone now. So you're kind of stuck there wondering what's the point of it all. And I think that's why summer vacation is like probably like the worst thing for me. It's like the academic year is done. There's nothing left to do, and now there's this sort of big gap in identity that I need to search, and sometimes it's not very healthy, I'll say. Anyway, that's the second way that I usually judge myself. I guess those are the two main things. Yeah. Anyway, you have anything to add?
I was just going to say it's very interesting because for my teaching job, I have to watch these videos in preparation for teaching. Mm-hmm. And one of the videos talks about kind of how people perceive themselves. And it says that essentially when you're young, well, there's three selves. So there's your actual self, there's the self that you aspire to be, and then there's the self that if you worked your hardest, the self that you'd be then. So like, it's not necessarily the self you aspire to be, but it's the self that you, like, if you had done all the things you had planned out for the day, you'd be that self. So it's kind of like there's the top, there's the middle, and there's where you are right now. Mm-hmm. And when you're young, you strongly believe that if you try your best, you work your hardest, you can be the self you aspire to be. However, every time you make a mistake, you notice that mistake, and it really does affect you. And in fact, it affects you more than it affects other people. So other people might notice the mistake you did, but it won't affect them as much as it affects you. And as you go through your journey of growing up, you keep making these mistakes, and you realize that you're not attaining your ideal self. And you're not even attaining the self that, let's say everything went well, the best you could possibly be. And that makes you more and more depressed and more skeptical of the fact that you can actually be whatever you want to be, and you can actually idealize your ideal self. And you keep making these mistakes that affect you very much personally. So as you grow up, you become more and more callous and more kind of, single mind. Well, you don't think as much about your ideal self because you don't want to disappoint yourself, or you don't want to be disappointed. And so people don't aspire as much to become ridiculous things. So your aspirations become more narrow. They aren't as quote unquote absurd, and your expectations become less and less. And I found that was very, very interesting, because I could definitely see as I grew up, my expectations for myself, I think, became less and less challenging, or less ridiculous in some ways. So yeah, that's kind of what your talk made me think of. Anyway, I think we all answered the questions. Does anyone want to have any last words before we end this episode?
We should totally do a different episode, like based on this sort of questions. I think it's a very cool idea. We should do this. We should do this next time.
We'll see.
Anyway, Raid, do you have anything to add before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for hosting me for this 2 hours, I think. And
we have never actually did a 2-hour episode, so I think this is special in that way. I don't know, it's because our podcast is really good, or we were just good at rambling.
I think we had 3 very interesting perspectives here. We had a perspective. I know you've been here for 5 years. Right, but still, talking about Saudi Arabia, that's very interesting. Again, Ethan and I don't know very much about Saudi Arabia. We have Vietnam. I don't really know much about Vietnam, even though I've done 14 episodes with Ethan. So yeah, we had just lots of talk, and also the soccer.
Yeah, the soccer.
So yeah, It was a pleasure to have you on. I just want to say, for the viewers who are watching this, maybe the one person who's watching this, I had to wake up at 8, and also Raid had to wake up early this morning. So we're both barely awake, just got up, haven't had our breakfast. And Ethan here, he's eaten.
Oh.
It's later in the day.
So it's Ethan now. But
yeah. So I just want to really thank Raid for coming on early on in the morning, talking to, wasting 2 hours of his life talking about, soccer and things like that. And it was very much a pleasure to have you on, Raid, and we hope to have you back in the future, especially to hear about how your last year of university went, and kind of, maybe you'll have a job right after university, and then you can talk about your job.
Yeah, hopefully, for sure.
So
Raid, thank you so much for spending the time. I think it's so funny that in the last 14 episodes, I was the one who's doing this sort of thing at 7 in the morning, and I never complained just once. And now the time that we're doing things different, Josh just turned around and looked at me and be like, "Oh, look at Ethan. That guy never does anything."
I'm notorious for throwing Ethan under the bus. That's basically why I do the whole podcast. When it's just me and him, I just throw Ethan under the bus every single time. Anyway,
I'll see.
Do you want to?
Let me do it. You've been doing the intro. Okay. You've been stealing my thunder. Now let me end this. Anyway, Raid, thank you for being on our show. And it was certainly very interesting knowing you. And hopefully one day we can meet in real life and we can talk about soccer, something like that. But see you guys next week.